I think it's very interesting, actually, that we have the curator of the Jane Jacobs exhibition and the curator of the Robert Moses exhibitions sitting side by side. And I just want to briefly mention 4 reasons why we believed that the University of Pennsylvania played a critical role in its city. Universities are really engines of economic development and of economic capacities. They often are among the largest employers in their neighborhoods. Even small colleges often are. Certainly universities, when you add their medical center, really have the capacity to stimulate economic development in a way that has the potential to be a win-win, but isn't always a win-win. The second reason is that many urban universities have played a role in the name of redevelopment in the destruction of the neighborhoods around them. The third is that universities have great capacity internally, fantastic faculty, lots of energy on the part of their students, and a lot of great potential to really be partners in what communities ought to do and ought to be, and what communities together ought to feel like. And yet universities are often the kind of 4,000-pound gorilla exercising their interests in a way that isn't always neighborhood friendly. And so figuring out how to get that right became an imperative for us at the university, and there's no one way to get it right. And then finally, and I urge us to consider this really importantly, for us, it was really a matter of civic engagement. And that is, if we are training our students to be the leaders of the future, then we believed that it was not only necessary to train them to be brilliant lawyers and wonderful architects and great doctors, or great art historians, but it was also incredibly important to teach them to be great citizens.
When I returned to Columbia as president, now just a little over 5 years ago, I knew that Columbia had to expand and had to grow really significantly. There were many options facing Columbia for new space, including Midtown or out in the suburbs or across the river in New Jersey. My decision very deliberately was to try to grow within our own very close neighborhood. You know, there are many issues that we face. One of them is the so-called problem of gentrification. Of all the institutions that can help deal with the problem of gentrification, however one defines that, universities are really critically important as a solution to that.
The most powerful force in the shaping of our neighborhoods and our urban fabric is the private sector. It's private development. And universities are playing a moderating role in relation to the effects that private developers have on our cities. Moses, whom you know, had little patience for rules that constrained him and absolutely no interest in citizen participation, stretched the framework of urban renewal in order to allow universities to expand. He understood that universities played a crucial role in improving the quality of urban life.
We're in an era where it's thought that the best role for government often is not to be in the way of anything, and even an administration as distinguished as the Bloomberg administration has now come finally late, but it did come late to the notion that it had some responsibility for protecting communities. The two big economic forces that can't get out of town and can't go offshore are, in fact, the universities and the hospitals. They're kind of stuck here, and I think they're basically proud of it and love it, but it does put a new requirement on them. Universities today have the capacity to use great powers, even the powers of the state. And the message, I think the lesson of the use of great power is the greater the power, the greater the necessity of restraint. And I think it's a desperate need now for a new commitment to genuine discussion.
Do universities have deeper obligations, not only than private sector actors, maybe even than other kinds of public actors, say hospitals or something, and that therefore we should hold them to a higher standard when it comes to issues like relationship with the surrounding community.
Universities must inevitably ask about their own impact on the broader society. And I think universities have a very high standard, therefore, to which they should be held and to which they hold themselves.
Could you talk just for a minute at the level of politics and process of what it was that you had to do in order to transform what had been a really adversarial relationship with the community?
Yeah, Penn's relationship was terrible, and the politics were very, very, very heated. And one of the things I learned was no matter how much collaboration, and there was enormous daily, weekly, continuous collaboration, and no matter how much money you spend, it is never a process that will please all of the people all of the time.
Why do you think that for so many years, starting in '68, Columbia had such a contentious relationship with its community?
You think of the wonderful, the brilliance of the Morningside Heights campus. You know, it's really a glory of academic space and public space in a certain sense. But it does have walls. It's built so that it faces inward, and it has gates.
How do we talk about the reciprocal obligations of the community and, in effect, the acts of unfairness or injustice that are so easy to perpetrate if you're sanctified as the community?
You know, there's a long history to the challenges of citizen participation because it is a question who speaks for the neighborhood. Neighborhoods are diverse groups, and neighborhood is not a monolith.
I think Jane Jacobs, what she really taught us to try to identify are those civic ecosystems and to be smart about what elements of that ecosystem needed to work together and in the kind of dance.
And if she had one thing that she believed in, was to turn it back and say, well, what would you say? Can you use your eyes? Can you use your human sense? And she really believed in that capacity. But believing in that capacity didn't make her anti-development or anti-large-scale development. She just wanted to apply human judgment.
The area that we're planning to build a new campus has lost jobs, has been a declining area economically for several decades. The issue for me is how do you create that sense of life on the ground in an area with all the magic that goes with people feeling like I really love to be here. That's incredibly hard to do. I don't know of any formula for that. There is a view that maybe it would be good to break up the academic buildings and uses and spread them around and have other uses in between. There's a problem with that. First of all, as I said, there's great importance in having a campus. So there are different visions that are being discussed, and that's entirely legitimate, and we have to make the best case we can.
17 acres to be cleared with the use of eminent domain, with a single owner, and a group of buildings that all look identical. How is that any different from Robert Moses? These issues are exactly the same. Do you think that things have changed since James Jacobs? What? An all-white panel discussing these issues that affect poor people of color disproportionately, and you think that things have changed since James Jacobs was here on Earth? I do not.
Do you have a question?
That is my question. Do you think that things have changed so much?
Well, I've had many opportunities to hear you speak. I would make the case that Columbia is an extraordinarily diverse institution. The fact that this is widely supported by representatives and leaders within Upper Manhattan in particular, and Harlem, I think speaks volumes.
One of the things that Jane Jacobs talked about was that eyes and feet on the street are what makes for life and safety.
There's a set of principles, and those principles are knowable, and they're knowable by anybody in this room. You don't have to have a graduate degree in anything to figure out, you know, what human beings use and what they don't.
So we've run out of time. I want to thank you for asking extremely thoughtful questions. Please visit the exhibition at the Urban Center Galleries. Thank you very much.